Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. So we're going to take a look at the hostage exchanges that happened yesterday. Who are they and what kind of condition were they returned in? Trita Parsi is going to join us to talk about what we can expect next. He is, a phenomenal analyst taking a look at some of Trump's comments, trying to read the tea leaves about what the next phase may look like. Trump is pulling back the curtain on how his foreign policy was just out and out bought by Miriam Adelson, just saying the quiet part out loud. Truly an extraordinary clip. We'll play the whole thing for you. We are taking a look at economic indicators and asking the question whether it might be 1929 again. Very concerning, some of the things that we are seeing. We're also taking a look at Ghislaine Maxwell. The Wall Street Journal had an extraordinary piece about how she had a secret meeting and what her life is like at this club-fed prison camp. Kamala and Hillary have some thoughts on the past election. Mark Maron and Obama also have some thoughts on such things. And Ken Vogel is going to join us. He's out with a new book about foreign influence. Ken has been one of the best reporters out there in terms of tracking the influence of money in politics on both sides of the aisle. So really looking forward to speaking with him, about that.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you to everybody who has been signing up at breakingpoints.com. You got your great AMA yesterday without me, without Emily, which I think is what the fans want. I'm joking. Breakingpoints.com to support us. If you can't, no worries. Just please hit subscribe on YouTube to the channel. It really helps people find the show. It's also, if you're listening to this on a podcast, rate us 5 stars and send an episode to a friend. It's what word of mouth is always what helps us grow. But with
I feel like, Saagar, even when you're not here, we get lots of questions about you.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really? I guess I'm an enigma.
You're very fascinating.
I'm an enigma to the people. Yeah, mostly about marijuana though. So I wish it was known for something else. I just wish.
Oh, come on, you lead.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, let's be honest.
Get real.
Let's be honest. I love it. I drink your bong tears. All right, let's get to the hostages.
All right. So yesterday we had the exchange of hostages from both the Israeli and the Palestinian sides. The 20 remaining living Israeli hostages were released alongside roughly 2,000 Palestinians, most of whom had been picked up post-October 7th. Thousands of Palestinians remain in Israeli custody. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the VO of the Israelis being brought back home. You can see the cheering crowds, the Israeli flags. They're being transported here in buses. You can see them exiting these vans to cheers and big smiles on their faces. You can only imagine how delighted their family and friends are to see them alive. It's going to be a bit more difficult. Some of the bodies of the deceased hostages were sent back as well. Some of them they are having trouble locating, so that process will take a bit more time. This was all men who were released. By the way, there was a bunch of discussion about the fact that it was all men yesterday. The reason is because women were prioritized in the earlier hostage releases. So what remained were 20 men. Some of them had been kidnapped from that Nova Music Festival. A number of them had been in the IDF and were taken on October 7th. So that's the joyous exchange on the Israeli side. We can take a look at the Palestinian hostage release as well. Coming back from these Israeli prison camps. We've talked quite a bit, actually. There's been a lot of reporting, including in the Western media from the New York Times, about the treatment of detainees in these Israeli prisons. And here you can see, someone's son just being lifted up to embrace him. You can also see some of the dire condition that a number of these Palestinian hostages were in, which goes back to what I was saying about, we know in these prison camps, lack of food, lack of water, lack of sanitation. We know about there was that right to rape protest. So we know about torture and abuse that occurred. And you can see this released hostage saying exactly that they don't let them sleep. They threaten you. They say that they've killed your children. They say that there is no Gaza left. And this is this just broke me to watch this man who was just released to find out that his 3 children were all killed by the Israelis while he was being held. And one of his daughters was about to have her birthday. He had made her a small bracelet, and now he's broken, finding out that his family is gone. So released. So, this is the reality of what it is in Gaza. There's joy and reunions and, children who finally have a smile on their face and a bit of an increase in aid trucks coming in and some hope that maybe the intense bombardment is over. I will say there were some indications that Israel's already violated the ceasefire in a number of ways, but some hope there, some joy, some relief, some beautiful reunions, some people coming back and finding surprising that some of their residence remains, and then you have these other stories that are just utterly, they'll just break you, where they're being released and finding out the family's not there. They're coming back to find their home and finding it's complete and total rubble. 85% of the Gaza Strip has been turned into rubble. So, still continue to be a lot of pain and suffering going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the entire scene is heartbreaking. First of all, for the Israeli hostages, you spent 2 years in captivity, crazy, to be able to come home. It was the driving force of the war. Then the Palestinian hostages, I mean, there's so many of them as well. And of course, they haven't been highlighted nearly as much in the Western press. Part of the reason we thought it was important to put both side by side, we can feel joy for everybody who is coming home, and especially for the people of Gaza. They get to breathe for a day, right?
Yeah.
And that in itself is a huge accomplishment. And it is something, though, that I said this in our initial segment about the ceasefire when they eventually agreed to it. We all need to sit with all of the claims that were made over the last 2 years. The claim of the war was to free the hostages. It did not work. The vast majority of the hostages were not rescued in a military mission. They were gotten out through 3 successive ceasefire diplomatic negotiations.
And in fact, many more hostages were killed through the kinetic warfare.
At least
than were rescued.
And that's just in the acknowledged ones. I mean, who even knows? Like right now, there's all this dust up over the return of the remains. But part of the, look, who knows what Hamas and all of them are saying? Maybe they didn't kill them. Nobody really knows. But they're like, hey, you're the ones who killed them, and we can't find their bodies because they're really buried under inches of rubble, which seems somewhat believable, or at the very least possible, in this negotiation. But the point I think we just have to sit with is, it actually was that simple the entire time.
That's right.
And I think that is so validating for so many critics of this war, because for years and years and years and years, we were told under this previous administration, we can't just tell Israel what to do. And it's like, oh no, you can. Now, why did Trump break? I will never know. There's reporting in the past, that he actually knew about the Qatar strike, but then afterwards he appears to kind of freak out about it, and he calls the emir and he apologizes. He makes Bibi read the hostage statement live in the Oval Office, being like, I'm very sorry that I attacked you. He creates the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue. They sprint to a ceasefire. By all indications, at every single turn, he told Bibi, it's over. And he keeps saying it over and over again. When he was asked in Israel, they said, what's your message to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who won't say that the war is over? He said, the war is over. The war is over. The war is over. Do you understand me? The war is over. I don't know what it is exactly that broke him. It could be, we talked about this with Jeremy, frankly, a lot of the domestic political strife that has happened now, the wide awakening of a lot of the youth. But I think everyone should just sit with this. At the end of the day, with Russia, with Ukraine, with Israel, with every other proxy conflict, it actually is as simple as the president of the United States calling somebody up and saying, you're done here. It's over. So Zelensky's coming here on Friday. Potentially we'll get ourselves a deal here. But let's learn a little bit of that lesson. Is at any point, you can stop the weapons and you can say, it's done. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
And that's what these people, these Israel critics, or these pro-Israel people have always tried to drum into our head. Israel's a sovereign nation. It can do what it wants. We just have to support them. We have no say. They have their own internal affairs. It's all fake, right? Because for all the years, Krystal, that we sat here and said, oh, Smotrich, he could do a deal. Ben-Gvir and all these people, they can do the government. Where are they now? Where's their red lines? Zip, nothing. After Trump just says, hey, it's done.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
And for that, I mean, again, you killed potentially hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands at the very least, inflicted immense pain and suffering, and you didn't actually get what you wanted to be done. You said you wanted to destroy Hamas. Yes, Hamas gave up power, but part of the deal is that Hamas gets amnesty, they get to give up their weapons, and they get to become a legitimate political party. That's actually not the destruction of what you originally claimed. I mean, their entire model of the war was World War II unconditional surrender of the Japanese Japanese and of the Germans. Well, I didn't see any Nazis, who had to just give up their arms and they get basically completely, back allowed into the government. I don't remember the Japanese militarists.
Got allowed into our government.
All right. Oh, you mean like Werner von Braun? Yeah, I mean, sure. Listen,
but your point,
it's complicated. We got the rocket out of it. All right, maybe it was a good deal.
But I mean, I think there's a lot to linger on there.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you underscoring that point because, we're not geniuses or rocket scientists here. But when I go back and think about our commentary post-October 7th, we said, number one, your goal of eradicating Hamas, it's impossible.
Right, it's
like through military means, it's impossible. The only way you can accomplish anything approximating that is through diplomatic negotiations, through giving people in Gaza a better alternative to Hamas. And, so from the beginning, it was clear, and we weren't the only ones saying it, military analysts, even, Israelis who had formerly been in government were saying the same thing. You are not going to accomplish your goal of eradicating Hamas through kinetic warfare, not happening. Number two, we said he doesn't care about the hostages. The hostages are just an emotional tool to keep his own population on board with this. And that was never more clear than the first ceasefire under Biden when you had an exchange of hostages. And it was, it was abundantly clear that they were not able to retrieve hardly any. I think there were maybe 2 hostages that were actually rescued through some warfare, which actually, by the way, killed hundreds of civilians in the process of this military action. That was really clear. And number 3, from something like October 9th or 10th, effectively this deal was on the table from Hamas. All for all. We'll give you back all the hostages. We want all of our hostages you're holding back. We will give up power. They were not particularly wild about governing the Gaza Strip. Something approximating this deal has been available the entire time. The only thing that changed was the willingness of the American president to say, we are done. Now, caveats. Like I said, already indications that Israel has murdered a few more Palestinians, that they are already in low-key ways violating the ceasefire. Israel has violated basically every ceasefire that they've agreed to. They're violating the ceasefire in Lebanon right now. It will take a lot of focus and commitment from this administration, even to just maintain this ceasefire. That's before you get into any sort of rebuilding of Gaza. That's before you get into anything that approximates a long-term political solution that could bring actual peace and coexistence. We are so, so, so far from that. But it's really key that people understand all of these years, these 2 years, these horrible days, the death, the starvation, the suffering, the turning Gaza into total and complete rubble, 85% decimated into rubble. All of it was for nothing. It was for nothing. The Israeli hostages, some of them were killed over the course of that genocide, the untold number of Palestinians, the fact that they can't even find some of the hostages in the rubble. What does that tell you about how many Palestinians are dead and lost in the rubble and not being counted in the official statistics? I think we all know that the official number of dead wildly undercounts the number who were actually killed as a result of Israeli bombardment. So it was all for nothing. It all could have ended so quickly. It all could have come to the same conclusion almost from the very beginning. And because you had Netanyahu, who still, by the way, is committed to going back in and continuing the death and destruction, the only thing that is holding him back is the American president. And this was what Hamas was banking on. They understood that strategically. I mean, that's what Jeremy would always tell us is they're it's not that we like and trust Donald Trump, but he's the only one. He's literally the only person in the world who can make this thing stop. So we have to throw our chips in with him ultimately.
Let's also, look, Biden should escape nothing here because he has been proven wrong at every turn. Do you remember the Biden administration refused to engage in real diplomatic negotiations with Hamas? You have to give Trump credit. Basically, from the Witkoff days forward, they were willing to meet with them. And the inside story of how this all came to pass has now been reported, at least the official version from Barak Ravid. The initial times when the Qataris kept presenting the stuff to the negotiation tables to the Hamas, they said, we don't believe you. We need to hear it from the United States itself. And so what happens? Witkoff and Jared Kushner got into a bus. They drove to the Hamas villa. They met with them one-on-one, which, remember, the Biden administration, again, refused to do for some bizarre reason. And At the end of the day, Witkoff looked them in the eyes and he said, the president says that the war is over if you guys sign this. And they said, okay, we have no choice but to believe you. They would have done the same under Biden. And so, this is where the, high-minded liberalism of the Biden team, of Anthony Blinken, of Jake Sherman, these guys are clowns. They presided not only of the destruction of Gaza, of the blank check, bear hug, but rhetorically kind of call out strategy. They refused to do anything to actually end the war. And you have to look at the results for what it is that you had 2 ceasefires and the actual end and the release of the hostages under Donald Trump. And the reason why is because of being ability to engage with Hamas itself and to provide them at least some guarantees. That is always how this war would have ended. Biden could have ended it, over a year and a half ago. He didn't do it. Now, look, caveats galore, as you just said. With Trump, he also gave them a blank check for years.
Yeah.
He rhetorically was probably more pro-Israel than anything. But I think what, some of the more realist supporters of Trump have always said is like, yeah, he's schizophrenic. He goes from one day to being Miriam Adelson's boy to the other of being like, Israel will not annex the West Bank and Bibi, you're done. And you never know which Trump you're going to get on any given day. We finally got the good one after a while. But it's really not about Trump himself. It's about proving all of those defenders of the Biden status quo wrong, because there's no defense of the way that they handle the war. And I'm still angry about it because, one of the things about them is they always seemed as if they were at the mercy of history, like they were at the mercy of Israel and that they were at the mercy of Russia and Ukraine. No, we're the primary actors. That's what we have said here on the show from the very beginning of the outbreaks of this conflict. We have the ability to drive and to shape events, if not outright dictate them, from the Ukrainian side even to the Russian side in terms of direct diplomatic negotiations from the battlefield. Israel is not, think about some of the stuff that Biden let Israel get away with, which frankly really expanded the war. He not only allowed the bombing of Lebanon, he allowed the bombing of that Iranian hostage in Syria, and then we defended Israel when Iran struck back at them. He's the one who emboldened and shaped the political environment such that being pro-Israel was basically just selling them weapons and then rhetorically backing them up, set the table for Trump and for Netanyahu to expand the war to 6 different countries. It's shocking to sit and to think about the Middle East now, some 2 years later. And it's funny, the pro-Trump people are all saying, oh, it's a much safer Middle East. We'll get to that, I think, with Trita Parsi. But
yeah.
Honestly, what we have had is the prevalence of Israeli, basically foreign gangsterism from Iran, either drawing the United States in or whatever. You could describe it. Having America have your back secretly, nobody will really know the full story. Whatever happened. You had the overthrow of the Assad regime, the installation of a literal al-Qaeda figure who is pro-Israel. Okay? Can we sit with that again? Everybody just seems to brush past it. You had the decimation of Hezbollah, of Lebanon. You had, I'm forgetting the number of countries.
Yemen.
I'm forgetting the number of countries that they bombed now at this point. Hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. support now over decades, not to mention tens of billions since this war began. And also the diplomatic isolation both of Israel and of the United States. So that sets the table for whatever comes next. And that's where, leading into the Trita Parsi segment, there's so much exaggeration. I was watching Fox News, as I often do in big moments, just to be like, okay, what's
the tape?
And they're like, oh, he has finally brought peace to the Middle East.
God.
And I was like, guys, oh. I'm like, look, we can rejoice for the freedom of the hostages, which we do. We had the families. Griffin interviewed the father of one of the hostages who was released.
It was just released, yeah.
We rejoiced for him. We sat with a early member, remember, an Israeli we had here on the show. We had him here in the studio. His sister was taken hostage by Hamas. We rejoice for her freedom. We'll always have. We rejoice for the Palestinians who have been able to come back. But we cannot sit seriously and say that there has been brought peace to the Middle East. We have a diplomatically isolated Israel. We have the Palestinian people of at least some 2 million, maybe probably less, to be honest, at this point. Who knows? 1.6, 1.7 million? Nobody really knows how many people are alive. They are now about to be governed by some insane coalitional provisional authority of Gaza run by the West. Will they be sold for parts? Will they have states whatsoever? What is that going to materialize? Are we just going to see that Hamas Hamas re-rise again, you know, with all of the discontent and of their treatment? Can you imagine being one of those people? Are you truly done? How can you be demilitarized after something like this? Or if you are, then it's going to have to come from the US, Germany, and Japan model, and everybody sign up for 70 years of occupation of Gaza. Maybe that's on the table. I don't know. I didn't vote for it. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of you did either. So
I don't think this was a successful direction in terms of de-radicalizing anyone, because I mean, just imagine that you're one of these kids that was bombed for your formative years. You know, if you're 7 years old, basically all you've known in your life is like being bombed and shot at and fleeing for your life and displacement and your loved ones being murdered and you being starved to death. Like, do you think that that's going to engender feelings of love and peace across the population? And so, which again are things we've, you know, said from the very beginning, that this was no way to go about achieving some sort of a sustainable peace. So all of that remains. I mean, there's a real risk that, you know, yes, Trump was doing his whole victory lap at the Knesset and in Egypt and oh my God, I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, and at the same time bragging about, oh, I gave Israel everything they want and they used it in this, you know, very harsh way. I mean, he, you know, for months and months was a monstrous war criminal overseeing a genocide. And that just doesn't get washed away. And there's a real risk that if this thing isn't kept together, and if there isn't anything approaching a, you know, a sustainable, I can't even say just, but a sustainable solution here, that could end up looking like a bit of a mission accomplished moment. But, you know, for the time being, we're relieved that at least there's a lull in the kinetic, overwhelming force that had been applied and wielded against these people in Gaza. It's unbelievable. Just a couple of other updates. We could put A7 up on the screen. Dropsite is reporting on the influx of aid. This is another thing, I mentioned this yesterday, but I just have to. But given all of the lies and the propaganda, oh, it's not Israel that's blocking the aid. It's the UN. They need to get their act together. It's the Palestinians who are like storming the trucks and the trucks can't get through. That's why we have to have GHF. GHF is gone. As part of the deal, the UN and other aid organizations are allowed by Israel to flood the area with aid. So far, however, the amount of trucks coming in continue to be insufficient. According to the Gaza government media office, they said only 173 aid trucks entered the Strip on Sunday. I believe the number is there should be something like 600 trucks a day getting in to, you know, for it to be sufficient for the population. Convoy included 3 trucks of cooking gas, 6 of solar fuel for bakeries, hospitals, generators amid severe shortages after months of blockade and destruction. Authorities warn the amount was a drop in the ocean of Gaza's needs, stressing over 2 million residents require a sustained large-scale flow of aid, fuel, and medical supplies. And you can see the photo is from October 12th, so 2 days ago, as hungry crowds strip aid trucks amid catastrophic hunger and deprivation. So there's still a, you know, incredible need there. One of the things that I was seeing as well is, you know, the Israelis have withdrawn from part of Gaza. They still occupy a significant portion. And the part that they occupy is actually the area that has any sort of fertile farmland. Most of what they've withdrawn from is the sandy part where nothing can grow. They also, as we covered yesterday, thanks to Dropsite News' reporting, they also, Israeli soldiers, you know, torched and destroyed anything they could on their way out, including this key wastewater treatment plant in Gaza City. Was basically the only remaining even somewhat functional wastewater treatment plant in Gaza City. So just to give you a sense of the, you know, the enormous challenges and suffering that remain, let's go ahead and put the next one up on the screen. You know, I don't think we could show these images enough to really give you a sense of what this, when they say they're returning home, like this is what we're talking about. 85% of Gaza has been turned into rubble. There are, you remember when we were all eyes on Khan Yunis, you know, all eyes on Rafah? Remember that? All eyes on Rafah? I mean, Rafah's destroyed.
Yeah, that seems quaint at this point.
I mean, unbelievable. And again, I mean, that was Biden too. That was supposedly a red line. Well, Rafah's wiped off the map. You know, Khan Yunis wiped off the map. Gaza City largely destroyed. So most people who are coming back are saying, I have nothing to come back to. There's nothing here. It's destroyed. This family home that's, you know, that I built or my grandfather built or has been my home where my children grew up, like gone. Not to mention all of the, you know, all the normal things we take for granted, like the shops, the schools, the, you know, the parks, like every constituent element of just normal day-to-day human existence was intentionally wiped off the map. And again, for people who claimed, oh, this is the most moral army in the world, and this is just a war of self-defense, a just war of self-defense, you know, Jared Kushner saying some bullshit like that while he was in Israel. Look at that and tell me that's self-defense. You didn't even destroy Hamas. You just wanted to murder these people. You just wanted to destroy the life and wipe off the face of the earth any sign of Palestinian life and survival and culture. So, you know, it's a lot of pain and heartbreak that continues there.
Yeah, it's shocking how we, and by the way, let's sit with this too. Now, in some ways, the work begins, not only in terms of Gaza and how it gets governed and how, you know, aid begins to flow in. The moment journalists start to go on in there and to document, it's going to be drop after drop after drop. I mean, can you imagine, you know, to be able to go into Rafah, Khan Yunis, especially into North Gaza, which has been, you know, screwed with since October.
Right, from the beginning.
Nobody's been there for 2 years, and all the journalists who were Palestinian are dead. So at this point, especially with no bombardment, and you have live television cameras because the Rafah crossing is now open, and people are going to start to go in there. Doctors, like, we don't have to rely on secondhand testimony any there. It's only a matter of time until the actual national news crews, the Clarissa Wards, the Trey Yanks, and all these people start to go in completely unimpeded without IDF censorship.
Right.
It's going to be a
their
different
IDF babysitters.
Right. It's going to be a different world when you get live cameras of some mass grave. I mean, who knows what's down there, right? Ordnance everywhere, graffiti. I mean, we have a lot of this already from firsthand account, but it's another thing to actually go through and to report it all. And so when you have that, it could be honestly years of stories that start to come out. I mean, just think back to some of the great, if you think back to after war's end, you know, everybody in history, we kind of stop reading the book there, but there's a lot of life that was lived in between. And for years, people grappled kind of what the scene was like and what happened and what this commander did or that. And then the international situation with, again, the governance here. There's so many pitfalls for will there be a Palestinian Authority? What's going to happen to the West Bank? Trump says he won't let Bibi annex it. Bibi says that there will be no Palestinian state. What happens then? Trump is demanding, we're going to talk about this with Trita in a moment, he's demanding Abraham Accords, a normalization of relations from all the Arab states. For all of them, a prerequisite, allegedly, is Palestinian statehood. Will they stick to that? I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to move beyond it. So who knows? It's going to be... there's a long, long, long road ahead, but... You know.
Well, and as an indication of how opposed Netanyahu is to any sort of, you know, Palestinian statehood, which has long been his position.
Yeah,
this is not a secret.
True.
He's very open about how this is one of his primary missions is to block the you know, indefinitely, permanently, the creation of a Palestinian state. One of the people they refuse to let out of their prisons is Marwan Barghouti, who is seen, I mean, he's actually from a rival political party to Hamas, but they really advocated for his release because he's seen as this potential unifying Palestinian force who actually could potentially be head of state of a unified Palestinian state. And they said, nope, absolutely, that guy cannot go out. There were also a number of people, I think 150 roughly Palestinians that were on the sheet to be released, were released, but they were deported to other places. So those families were expecting them back and then find out that no, actually they were shipped to Egypt, I think primarily, and are barred from returning to Gaza. So, and then we've been trying to track this doctor who had been detained by Israel and imprisoned by Israel. And his name is very unclear whether or not he was part of this release or not. The last that I saw, they haven't been able to get updates from the family over whether or not he was actually released. And I just want to remind people that Israel still holds thousands of Palestinians as prisoners, as hostages. Most of whom they have no charges filed against. They just pick them up, largely quote unquote military-age men, but women and children as well. And, you know, they just pick them up and hold them and use them in, you know, the same way, basically, that Hamas used the Israeli hostages as leverage so that they can, you know, have this bargaining chip and continue to immiserate Palestinian people. So important to keep that in mind as well.
That's right. All right, let's get to Trita Parsi. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.